Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right.
So what do you think of 2014? I think it's uncertain.
I think it's the year after this. Yeah. It's next year. I'm excited about it.
working hard. I was saying this, it's kind of like a backhanded compliment. Last month, somebody said, "Oh, I didn't recognize you from behind," and I was like, "Why?" And they go, "Because you're fat." And I was like, so I was like, "Thank you," because it was good, but you got to take the good. It was rough. Exactly. I'm done with that. And then there's Andy. He's this laser focused chiseled machine. How are you, Mr. Dad? You're not kidding. Exactly. It's going to be a good one. We're going to make sure that you guys get. We were going at it at dinner, and I was just laughing because it's classic Sean and Bruce. Everything they're saying, and they're so cogent with their statements. They know exactly. And then one of them will make it's a point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. And I was like, no one's wrong. It was hilarious. I'm like, bam, 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 bam. Okay. I bet. But it's great, man. I saw your pictures of your kids, and I was like, this is fantastic. Body trained, the one. Yeah. All right, guys. Come on in and fill in the seats for us. I appreciate it. There's some seats still available up in the front. It's called Next Step, right?
I think so.
Next Step. All right, come on in. And like I said, there's some people dressed up like empty seats up here. Raise your hand if there's an empty seat next to you, please. We'll play the raise your hand game. Raise your hand if there's an empty seat next to you. All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Keep them up so we can fill in all the seats. Come on in. Right up front here. Two seats up here. Two seats up here. There's one right there. You can sit Indian style on the floor, I guess, if you want to. You really feel it. Have a powwow. All right, so those of you that have been, how many of you is your first time in an Investors Workshops meeting? Okay, that's great. We're really glad that you guys came, and we hope that we show you something tonight that'll make you want to continue to come to the meeting. Now, I understand that most of you are here to hear Bruce and or Sean and or both of them, but we would really like to see you back in our 2014 year, which starts in January. But for those of you that have been here, then you know how it works. We do haves and wants here at the club. And so what I'd like to do is invite people that have real estate opportunities and want to come up and share. You're going to come up and you're going to share at this microphone. And we've got it pushed too far up along the edge there. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you come up over here, kind of gather around here in this like bullpen area, right? So if you have any real estate that you want to share, you're going to get 30 seconds to come up here, talk into the microphone, say who you are, what you have, and how they reach you. So it might go something like, hi, my name is Bill Dufresne. I'm a mortgage broker, and rates are really low, and I can get you financed with zero doc and no money down and free money and blah, 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 and here's my number, right? Now, if that was Bill, yeah, Chris wants that money. So for those of you that want to get up here and share, give yourself a 30-second commercial, come on up here and gather up here in this area don't everybody charge me at once. This is crazy, okay? And then if you have wants, what if you are an investor that has some money and you've had a really hard time placing that money, or you have some inventory, you've got a specific set of inventory you're looking for and you can't find it? This would be a good time for you to come up and say what you want. How about a contractor who's got some skills and you want to work on some properties? Anything that you want as regards to real estate, this is a great opportunity for you to come on up here, give us a 30-second commercial, and let us know who you are and what you want. Now, we're also streaming this like we do every month live on the internet. So there's some people that you're going to reach too that are watching you right now on the internet. Okay, and so for those of you that don't know that, if you just want to be completely engaged in this meeting and not take a lot of notes, you can do that because you can go back for free later and watch it and back it up and stop it and replay it for yourselves. Okay, so we make that available to you so that you can, if you have to leave early, if you came late, or if you just want to watch it again, you can do that, and that's on our website, investorsworkshops.com. So we're going to kick it off here. We're going to let Drew kick it off, give us a 30-second commercial, who you are, what you have, and how to get a hold of you.
Hi, my name is Drew Orgel, and my wife and I have done many different real estate transactions, but what we have right now is a mobile home that we want to move out of Palmdale to an area where it can get a higher value when we sell the mobile home. So we're looking for someone who has a mobile home park or knows someone who owns mobile home parks, and if they want to joint venture with us on the cost of moving it, there are lots of different ways that we can work a deal, but we have a home that we own free and clear, and it will be worth quite something if we're in a better park. So if you know someone we can place that park, or you want to joint venture with me to place it into another park, see me.
What's your number?
Drew Orgel, my number is 714-907-0741. All
right, thank you, Drew. All right.
Hey, my name's James. I'm a rehabber. I'm always looking for properties. We buy between 6 and 10 properties a month, usually flip about 50 a year. And I need to keep filling my pipeline. So if you're a wholesaler or realtor, I'll pay wholesale fees, no problem. If you're a realtor, I'll let you represent me on the front end and then represent me on the back end. If you want, you can submit anything to me at altaequities.com. My phone is 949-200-6550. So look forward to working with anyone I can. Thanks.
Thank you. And remember, we always meet in the lounge afterwards for the meeting after the meeting. That's where a lot of transactions happen, and that's where you can get to know people a little bit better. All right?
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Meyer. I work with Trustee Capital. We're a family-owned private money lending business. Right now we have quite a few of our own notes paying off, so we're looking for house flippers that are looking to do some more projects. We'd love to work with you. We really are a relationship-based lender, so feel free to come up afterwards in the bar area and I'll buy you a drink. And
Uh-oh. You just made a lot of new friends.
My cell phone number is 949-322-4102. Again, the name of the company is Trustdeed Capital, and you can see us online. Check us out. It's trustdeedcapital.com. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name's Julie Boyd, and I'm a realtor. And I do a fairly high volume of short sales. I had 126 personal bankruptcy-related short sales last year alone. So I've always got something going on. I got, properties that sometimes that are appropriate for fix and flip. Love to partner with somebody who's going to allow me to hit it out of the ballpark and make them a ton of money on the backside. I'm awesome at marketing and know how to work on the short-term flip, and get the right financing for you to make your profits the highest. Also looking for financing options for some of my clients. So if you've got money, or you're looking for opportunities, please drop me a note at julieboyd@cox.net. That's Julie, Julie, Boyd, with a B, O-Y-D, @cox.net. My direct phone, although my phone hasn't stopped ringing since I got here, so it may be full, but my direct phone number is 949-661-9809, or my cell, 714-342-1978.
Thank you, Julie.
Hi, my name is Karen Batesel, and we are looking for a credit partner and a financial partner for a pizza franchise. And we need either $150,000, could be more than one investor, or $600,000 to fund the whole thing. And it's got a very good return on investment.
How do we reach you?
My phone number is 562-544-3064.
Thank you. That sounds like a spot I landed on cash flow, doesn't it? Pizza franchise for sale.
Hi,
Right.
my name is Linda Kang, and my company is Corral Design Tiles. We manufacture, direct import various type of building materials, specifically more on tiles. So if you're flipping homes, if you're looking to doing remodeling, we can get you a great deal at wholesale distributor pricing. And you can check us out on www.costcotile.com, because we run the tile program for Costco as well. So that will be the best place where you can kind of get to us first, get to view the different options that we offer, everything from wall tiles, outdoor tiles, swimming pool tiles, glass tiles, metal tiles. And the way you can reach me to get that wholesale distributor pricing is our office number is 562-204-1004, or my direct line number is 714-351-9900. Also, on another note, I am looking to diversifying my business to getting into real estate. So I'm looking for rental property, possibly like rental units, maybe small, like fourplex, 5-6 unit apartment buildings. So if you know of any, let me know.
What city or county, so they know?
I'm looking for mostly in Orange County.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. First time here. I'm pretty excited to be here. I am looking for a property manager in the Cincinnati area. I have about 20, close to 25 doors in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. And so right now I'm in need for a quality property manager who can work and is pretty efficient. I know sometimes it's hard to have a property manager out of town, but that's right now one of the needs that I have. I am going to be around after. If anybody knows of someone or them themselves or a property manager, telephone number is 951-275-3822. Thank you much.
Let me just take a show of hands. Anybody might be able to help him, raise your hand. Okay, so you got one. Usually, and you got another one. Usually you always got somebody. I just want to let you know it does work. Okay. All right, Walker.
All right, hey guys, I'm Walker. I'm with CalPAC, and we want to go ahead and make you a loan. So let us know. Anybody who's got fix and flip deals, we'd love to go ahead and give you some good terms. If you got some private capital, come and see me. We'd like to help you put it to work, and we buy a fair number of properties. So anybody who's out bird dogging or has some short sales, I definitely want to talk to you, Julie. Come get with us. I'll be around after the meeting. Again, I'm Walker with CalPAC.
Thanks, Walker. Do we want to tell us how to get you? Doesn't need no stinking mic. Yes.
Hi, my name is David Loff. I'm a real estate investor from South Bay area looking for some private money lenders. You can reach me at, my email is david.louff@gmail.com or my cell 310-562-6827. It's for some rehab projects.
Great. Ladies?
Hi everyone, I'm JJ San Jose. I'm a fix and flipper and I'm also looking for rentals. Any bird doggers, wholesalers, realtors, people doing short sales, I'd love to work with you guys. Also, women in the room, how many of you have been to the Women's Investment Network meeting? I know Jackie's been there as well too. So for those of you that haven't, we have a women's only meeting that happens on the last Tuesday of every month. We're actually going to be dark for the holidays, but we will be starting our January meeting, and it's going to be a digital vision board to get ready for the year and do your goals. So we meet on the last Tuesday of the month. You can contact me at jjsanjose.com. Again, that's jjsanjose.com. Thank you.
Good evening, guys. My name is Jeff Terreros. My cell phone number is going to be 714-916-2880. I'm here to talk to you real quick about healthcare reform. If you're Medi-Cal, guess what? Most likely that's going to stay that way. I highly doubt that most people in this room are going to be Medi-Cal, which means that you either get your health insurance through your employer or you get an individual plan. If you get it through your employer and the premium is more than 8% of the annualized premium, you can probably get a tax credit to get that lowered. And I can explain how that works. On the other hand, if you have an individual plan, depending on your income, you can either get a tax credit through the state, and I can help you with that and let you know what that is. And I have an app right here for the VS agents gets to let you know. And if you get your health insurance individually, you don't qualify for the tax credit, I can also help you with that. Pricing through me is exactly the same as you'll find online, so I can help you guys through all the different carriers and help you with it. So again, Jeff, 714-916-2880, and I do have flyers on the back table if you want to take one with you. Thanks.
So you're not the website. You're not down. See, you're not the government website.
That's
see?
right. That's
All
right. The government website is down, so it's a challenge to go in there. Even us as agents, we get it. But yeah, I can definitely help.
All right.
So.
Thank you, Jeff. Something to pay attention to. All right. Let's keep it moving there, folks. I know. I heard you guys having a little powwow over there.
Hi, I'm Monty Gillespie with Gillespie Brothers Enterprises. I'm also a flipper and a general contractor. And I'm also looking for bird dogs, wholesalers, and realtors to work with. I do a ton of short sales, so I'm always looking for those. I'll wait as long as it takes. We never run out of money. We always close on time. My number is 714-981-6606. That's my cell. Email me at gbeinvest.com. Thanks.
Thanks, Monty. Good to see you. All right, who's going to step up?
Hello, my name is Darius Marconic. I'm a rehabber. I've been an investor for about 20 years. I'm looking for private money or a partnership so I can do more deals. It works for both of us. Also looking for wholesale deals. And if you got any, please send them to propertymogul@msn.com, or you can call me directly at 562-746-1738. Again, 562-746-1738. Also have cards in the back. Thanks.
Awesome.
My name is Charles. I'm a fix and flipper, and I know there's a lot of guys up here that do that as well. A lot of you in here that do that. But one thing we do is we stand on our own. The money I put up is money that we have. I'm only partnering with one other guy, and so I'm looking for any wholesalers. I love realtors who have short sales. They're great because we go in there and they're trashed and we just de-trash them. It's great. So my number is 714-396-8112, and yeah, so we like I say, we stand on our own. We don't go out and get financing. We have our own money. So thank you.
Hopefully you guys are paying attention. For those of you that have said, oh, I can't find anybody to buy my wholesale deals, there's been a string of people up here, right? For those of you that say, oh, I can't find money, you've had a few people. So this is important. Even if you're not getting up here, take these notes and pay attention to these people and grow your list. This is your next deal is probably in the room.
Hi, my name is George Noor. What I have is first trust deeds. They're 60 to 65% loan to value. They're paying 8% interest, very secure, and the cash flow on the properties are 2 to 3 times the actual payment on the first. My direct cell number is 909-841-4545. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh yeah, go by all means, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tina Hartman, and my company is Short Sale Solutions. And I'm here to invite you. We are hosting a seminar on November 12th. Bill, November 12th. And the subject matter is short sales. Are they dead or your best deal? Yeah. Anyways, it's a free seminar. We serve you lunch. It runs from 10:30 in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon. And if you are interested, please RSVP by calling 949-340-5457. Ask for myself or Kent. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You can flip a coin.
Hi, I am private money lender. We work with the flippers, and we can provide up to 100% of financing. So if you need some money, please see me. My name is George Krajusik, 714-624-7416. Thank you.
You're going to have a lot of fans right there. Huntington Beach for Short Sale Solutions Seminar on the 12th from 10:30 to 1:30, and you'll serve everybody lunch, right? Did I get it right? Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Sean Katona. I'm doing predominantly rehabs, but I found I've got more properties right now that I'm able to handle with my own cash and crew, so I ended up wholesaling 2 of them last month, kind of fell into this. My website is simplifiedproperties.com. You go /subscribe, you can go right onto my buyers list there. And I've got a new construction duplex that I've been working on for about 8 months, just about done, right where the 105 meets the 110. So landlords or anyone who wants to live in one half and rent out the other, it's off market right now, brand new, should be done sometime in December, hopefully.
How do we reach you?
Simplifiedproperties.com is going to be the best way. My number is 323-400-4000.
Good number.
About that.
All right, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bat and clean up here, Bill.
How is the baseball game going?
I don't know.
Tina and I were just talking about the short sales thing, and she says that they've really picked up. My feeling is they want to close before the end of the year, so this is a wonderful opportunity, folks. Wonderful opportunity right now if you'll do it before the end of the fiscal year, because that's the end of their fiscal year. End of the calendar year, end of their fiscal year. I'm Bill Tan. I'm from San Diego. I'm teaching 2 classes. One is financial calculator class that he's going to attend. It's here locally in Costa Mesa on November 23rd. It's going to sell out. I have more than enough people who say they're going to come. They just haven't paid. So it's going to be first paid, first come, first in the class. I have flyers over there Saturday, November 23rd at Sean's office in Costa Mesa. And I'm repeating my solution-based financing class that I held earlier this year, February 1st and 2nd. I'm going to keep this to be close to, small class also. There's only 15 in the calculator class. I'm going to make this solution-based not much larger. My name is Bill Tan. 760-634-0492 is my number, and Bill at billtaninvestments.com. Lastly, are you going to talk about the REI Expo?
Go ahead.
This weekend, November 2nd and 3rd, there's going to be a conference, real estate conference locally. It will have lots of real estate speakers on different subjects. It'll be over here at the Anaheim Hilton? Anaheim Hilton. It's over there by Disneyland. We're throwing our support behind it. They say that the speakers are not supposed to sell from the stage, and the keynote's going to be the guy who looks like a pumpkin who's going to be up here tonight, Bruce. He's the keynote speaker. They have a really good group of speakers, one week one. And then I just convinced Tony that he should speak, and I'm going to find him a spot. So I'm going to get him on the schedule for this weekend. If you go online, I think it's like $100 or $150. If you'll get it from us tonight, it's $59. So if you're interested in going, see me, or I'll do it through them. I don't care, just as long as you guys get the discount price. And that has to be done here, okay? So
you can look at the lineup at reiexpo.com.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Big hand to all the people that came up for haves and wants. It's not always easy to get up here and do that. So if you watched it and it wasn't, what did Tony talk about in mindset tonight? He said physical fear and psychological fear. And physical fears are real and valid, and psychological fears are invalid. So don't worry about coming up here. It's no big deal, right? Come up here and talk to us and tell us what you want. Now, in the back of the room, you saw there, if you didn't, there's an orange sheet. What this basically has is a list of clubs that are around the area here in Orange, LA, and San Diego counties. And we kind of made it easy for you to kind of know the dates and the times and the contact information, because we really do believe that the more of these clubs that you attend, it's not always about the quality of the speaker. And we have some great quality speakers here for you tonight, like we hope we do every month. But it's about the people you meet. We want to really encourage you to share the information, ask for what you want, tell people what you have, because if you can't do it here at the clubs, how are you going to do it when it really matters, when you're sitting face-to-face with a seller where you spend a lot of money to make the phone ring? Does anybody else spend money to make the phone ring? Raise your hand. Isn't it a shame when it rings and you don't answer it, you don't close? So practice here. This is a really easy way for you to practice. So you'll find this sheet, and it'll tell you some of the clubs that we would recommend that you attend. And there's one flyer. I don't know if there's a flyer back there or not, but is Clyde here tonight? I know I saw him earlier. Is Clyde Wilson in the room? He's in the back. Well, Clyde Wilson, Gary Johnston, Bobby Redwine, John Schaub, and Jimmy Napier are going to all be in Las Vegas at the same time on November 9th and 10th. Now, if you don't know any of the names that I just mentioned, that's pretty much a who's who, and they're calling it the next step, how to find and fund real estate deals. And so that's November 9th and 10th. It's at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. And you can go to Gary Johnston's website, and he's got information on there. So I knew it was coming up. I kept saying, it's in November. I said, yeah, November's here. It's been a couple days. So November 9th and 10th at the Nugget in Las Vegas. Again, Gary Johnston, Clyde Wilson, Jimmy Napier, John Schaub, Bobby Redwine, and a guy you might know named Peter Fortunato. Anybody know Pete? A pretty good guy, right? So they're all going to be in Vegas on the weekend of the 9th and the 10th. So if you can make it, head on over there. I think it's $497 for one person. It's $947 for two people. I'm going to do my best to be there, so maybe we'll catch you guys in Las Vegas for the 9th and the 10th. Now, how many of you guys got your gold card? Right? Those of you that have the gold card were able to come to the bonus session tonight ahead of time early and listen to Tony talk about mindset. Now, the reason we do the gold card is we're really a member-driven organization, and Investors Workshops, What we do is we don't pay speakers to attend, and they don't pay us, and you're never going to have anybody selling any product from the stage. Is that a good thing? We don't want to do that to you, but the only way we can keep going is if you throw your support behind the club and let us know that you intend to be here month after month. One of the ways that you can do that is by buying an annual membership to Investors Workshops. We try to give you some goodies for that. We try to give you access to the bonus session ahead of time. We're going to start being able to push special discounts to you on any educational opportunities that we put together. Now, we are affiliated with Invest Club for Women. Any Invest Clubbers out there? Well, you're not. Why are you so quiet? You guys are never quiet. Are there any Invest Clubbers out there? If I had to channel Iris, I would say, where are her warriors? Ah, man, you guys aren't very warlike right now. I don't know what happened. At any rate, when you're a member of Investors Workshops, you can gain access to Invest Club for Women meetings for just $10. And Invest Club members can get into this meeting for just $10. And we've learned the value in collaborating with other clubs through the years. And so that's a very strong partnership that we're very proud of. So, get together with the people in both clubs and share your experiences. And again, I encourage you, if you happen to be a woman and you want to go to Women's Investors Network, JJ and Angel have been running that for a good amount of time. And didn't you guys just have a cash flow night last night? How did it go? Great. So you're going to miss out on that stuff. Guys, we just miss out on it. I guess we just don't get to go to that. But use that, and use that to your advantage, okay? So tonight, we've built it as the great debate. And the two guys that we have coming up here tonight, Bruce Norris and Sean O'Toole, have great respect for each other, and I honestly haven't met two guys in the California market that have done more research on things affecting our business than these two guys. And what they've agreed to do is come up tonight and let us pit them against each other is the wrong word, but we're going to talk to them. We're going to ask them some questions. We're going to get their opinions, whether they agree with each other or whether they disagree with each other. They've always got a good basis for that. So what I want you guys to do is I'm going to interview them up here. We're going to go through it. Remember, we're recording this and we're streaming it live. If you have questions, and some of you were nice enough to email them to me, and that was great. If you have questions, do me a favor, write them down, and then we will have somebody come by and you just pass them to the center, and I will get them asked of the two of them while it's on recording, because that way I can get your whole question asked and answered, and we can have it recorded. Does that sound like a fair deal? I know you'd be tempted to raise your hand or stand up and say, yes, but what about this? Try to keep that to a minimum, and we'll get through it. Does that make sense? All right, great. Well, with that, let's have Bruce and Sean come on up. So Bruce said he had boxing gloves in his trunk. We decided not to bring them out. Okay? I was a little bit too played up at that point. Right? And hopefully they're not going to play this trick on me. They said, "Oh no, we agree on everything now. We're just going to say everything's fine, Sean." Right? So let's not do that.
I told him we'd give really short answers and just look at him.
Yeah. Oh, what does 2014 look like? It looks good. Right? Looks like it'll be a fun year. Okay, so well, I had a great dinner with you guys, and but I tell you, you can really tell the mark of a dyed-in-the-wool investor when you sit down and I don't think there was aside from the food that we ate, Bruce didn't eat, he drank a lot of Diet Coke, but there was just nonstop conversation, and not one topic was covered twice. So you guys are really going to enjoy. I had a great time at dinner. There's a lot going on in not just California, but nationally. And those of us that were at I Survived I had a great time. I always do. But it seemed like this year there was for me, and you guys can debate me if you want, there was a lot more going on that's coming up in 2014 than I've seen happening in the last 10 years as it relates to California real estate. And what I want to start off with, Sean, is you made a comment at dinner, and you said, I don't really, and I'm going to paraphrase, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I know you will. You say, trust me, he's not afraid of doing that. One of the things where you disagreed with Bruce on was affordability. The number that Bruce gave was the California Association of Realtors has said that affordability is at 36%.
Right.
And Bruce's point was, well, yeah, until we get down to where we got really low before, I'm not worried about it. How did you feel about their affordability number? You immediately said, I don't really think that's a true number. Why?
Well, I think it's, with all of these statistics, sorry, it's really loud. It is, whether it's median price or whatever.
We could turn your mic off.
He's gonna feed it back. We
We
can put a bag over your head.
Yeah. I'm a little shell-shocked. I think with all of these numbers, you have to take them with a grain of salt. So you say 36% affordability, but that's a statewide thing, right? It's like saying the statewide median price is $430,000, or our data says it's $360,000. California Association of Realtors says $430,000, which is right. And why is there a difference, right? And those are the questions that we should be asking. So I worry about this idea that we're at 36% affordability and we can go to 20% because we've done it a couple times before. It's that old past performance doesn't guarantee future returns. The reality is, in 2000, the median price reflected what the median income household in California could afford. In 2006, at the peak, right, the median price reflected what the median household could afford, albeit with a pay option arm, right? Today, our median price is probably a little bit above what the median household income can afford. So I think it's right about where it should be. If we go to 20% affordability, that's a huge bubble. And we've done it, and we've done it every decade or so, as Bruce pointed out. But, to me, it feels like this last bubble is still a little too fresh to repeat it. So, I just don't have that confidence that we're going to go to 20% affordability like we have a couple times in the past.
And when we were at dinner, Bruce, you said, okay, what about 1980? What about 1989? And you had some chart data and some personal experience, and you and Sean had a little bit of a disagreement. Tell me how you think affordability stacks up and how it may affect price. You use the term price aggression, which I really like that term.
Well, high affordability doesn't mean a thing on its own, by the way. We had 50-some% affordability and prices didn't go anywhere the next year. So you have to have a combination of things that make affordability go down, interest rates going up one, or you have price increases, interest changing. It'll be in the future and it will probably affect that chart negatively. But at any rate, when you have price increases drive affordability down, there's an emotional element that starts to kick in where you get more and more and more participation. So if you look at an affordability chart, the history of it says the less homes are affordable, the more volume every category of participant does. Owner-occupant, investor local, investor international, because we're human beings. We go from investor to speculator. Now, the one thing we have to have is we have to have a financing world willing to do that. So if they are restricted from doing that, then that'll be a bit of a game changer. Do I think Dodd-Frank is going to rule certain aspects of the financing world? And we're getting a little bit off topic. Yes, but I think there's other capital that's about to come into play that will allow that to go on and continue to be profitable. If, again, 36 affordability mimics 2000. So, I know in the audience mind, it's okay. Are we already done? We had a really good run, so affordability is down. I notice my volume or my sales are slowed. All of those things are in place. Are we done? If we're done, we would be done in 2000 as opposed to, say, 2005 if you thought that was a more reasonable peak. Affordability is local, and we have taken the time to figure out all of those numbers as well. But ironically, we ended 1980, 89, and 2005, if you had gotten out when the state said 17%, you would have gotten out if you had a state investment in a timely manner. It worked in Riverside. Would it work in San Jose? Maybe not. But I don't ignore that affordability number for the state because it's been repetitive in nature. That's why, that's why I study all the way back to whenever that chart kicked in, and it started to be meaningful. The human nature side, though, is repetitive, and what we will do seems to be repetitive. So you think, okay, well, when affordability is 55, everybody wants it, right? No. We want it when it gets below 25, more than we want it when it's above 35. That's just what we do.
Talk about, Bruce, the volume of sales. We had Leslie Appleton Youngs was at the I Survived, and she projected that next year's sales will be the same as this year's sales. And
yeah, a little over.
A little bit over, but you immediately questioned that and said, how is that possible given the inventory levels that we have now? How would that affect?
Well, I don't say that it's impossible, but I'm saying you're drawing, let's say the volume hasn't really changed much. So if you go back to 2011, let's say you sold 430,000 units, and you did that on 6 months of inventory. So 2 years ago we had 6 months of inventory, and that gradually got down to 4.5, and then 2013 has seen inventory go from 4.5 to 3. So now you're going to have the same amount of sales land on 3 months of inventory. To me, that reflects a price increase, or it tells me that the volume can't happen. If you only have 3 months of demand in the marketplace, then you're going to have sales, say, 300,000 units instead of 450. I don't buy that that's the scenario. So I guess that's where I keep on landing on the space of, if you're going to have 430 or 450,000 sales out of the inventory levels that we have, you're going to have multiple offers. I don't see how you don't have it.
And how do you agree or disagree with that statement that that's going to
have 450,000 sales next year?
Do you think we'll have 300?
Oh, for sure.
300? No, 300 even.
Oh, I don't think it'll be that low. I mean, it'll be above 300 and well below 450, I think. I do think that, the financing question is the big question, coming up this next year. So we're going to probably keep referring back to that. And I think that will drive a lot of what we see or don't see in 2014. And it's kind of unknowable right now. I don't think it'll be as bad as some have predicted, like everything freezing up. And just maybe I should back up a little bit. A lot of the stuff under Dodd-Frank goes into effect January 1st. And it just changes a lot of the rules around lending, the qualified mortgage rules and stuff. And they've loosened that up a lot from what they originally planned. And so all of that helps. But it is a little bit of a new world, and there's a lot more regulation going to be in place. And, I've talked to a few lenders, and it seems like they're ready for it. So I don't think it's going to be a huge impact. But I don't see lending loosening up dramatically next year. These guys are going to be fighting the fire of trying to deal with all these new regulations. So I don't see a looser lending environment. And without a looser lending environment, we're kind of at the price we should be. Buyers buy as much house as their banker tells them they can afford. It's always been true. It's always the median household income, based on what the banker says that household income can afford, has been the median price for every year that I've checked it. And, so at least in the median statewide level, I don't see, how we significantly grow next year. Cash investors are slowly exiting the market. Their volumes have been down now for months in a row. Institutional investors, their volumes are dropping. So if, it makes sense because as prices go up, returns go down. So they're not buying as much. So without them and without the regular average person being able to get a loan to push prices up, I don't see how prices go up, yet we still have low affordability. I don't see, sorry, really long-winded answer, I don't see sellers, though, going, well, hey, we're going to adjust our prices down. Prices are fairly sticky on the upside. People go up quickly, but they don't come down quickly. I think all of that means lower sales volume next year.
So it's like you said, people are going to afford as much as the banker says they can afford. And sellers retrace very slowly. They say, well, hey, last year this guy bought for this much. I'm selling for 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 more than that. And you're saying you think we're done pushing this price aggression.
Well,
for 2014.
I think it's very possible that we won't see significant, price increases next. There is still low inventory. There is still the possibility of lenders getting more aggressive. There are a number of factors there. I would feel better about our market next year if we didn't see a lot of price appreciation, because if we saw 20% next year, we're absolutely no question in a bubble.
Okay.
And I don't think we are right now.
And so
overall.
Right. And so again, that's where I listen to both of you, and it's like I'm of two minds. Honestly, it's really difficult when you're sitting here looking at you, listening to you, because you're both right. Because none of you have a crystal ball, right? And we talked about that at dinner tonight. What a lot of people hear.
I've asked for one for Christmas.
And every year, Santa just leaves it at home. I get it. A lot of people want to know. And again, specifically for the group that's here that are investors, we had to talk about this. We had to talk about speculating versus investing.
Well, on the crystal ball, though, one of the things I love about real estate investing is it's pretty easy to have a crystal ball most of the time. In 2005, Bruce and I both made the decision to, start getting out of the market. It was a really, really good decision. And I think it was an easy decision, if you really were paying attention to the data, to come to. Not taking away from those that didn't. But when you have this much regulatory change going on, we were very successful in saying there would not be a foreclosure wave, right? We started saying that in late 2008, 2009, after all the government, September 2008, a lot of government intervention started. 2009, I said, there's not going to be a foreclosure wave. Foreclosures are going to decline from here. And that was a very good call. And everybody else said, well, as soon as this is over, as soon as this is over, as soon as this is over. But what they missed was, politics were not going to allow a wave of foreclosures to happen. And they were going to keep inventing whatever new program they needed to invent to stop them. And, so we're not in a normal market, right? When you have this much intervention going on, to say you're going to know what's going to happen next year, I mean, we don't even know if they're going to, the government shutdown. Everybody's like, oh yeah, the calmer heads will prevail. Well, guess what? They didn't, and it's strange times.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one thing that the panel really felt, even on the, we're in the limo driving there, the conversations about uncertainty were real, where even the people at the top of the heap, if like the Mortgage Bankers Association president is just like, we're not absolutely sure what Dodd-Frank still means. We're 60 days away from implementation. We still don't have the scorebook. And I think that is a problem. There's a lot of hesitancy saying, well, sort of like tax rules. It'd be really nice to know the tax rules before the end of the year so you could make any adjustments. And that's, the lending rules are basically trying to figure out, okay, well, what is safe for us to say yes to? What programs can we have? What is the down payment requirement? All those things. Well, as soon as they get that done, it'll be better. I just want to mention something on affordability. Affordability, it's interesting when you buy a residence and you own it in a year like year over year last year, you have this magic thing called equity show up. So let's say you sell that house and you buy another one. Your payment's not going to be radically different because your mortgage balance isn't going to be radically different. The median price went up a whole bunch, but so did your money that you had, and then you bring that to the next transaction. I remember when we were starting, I had a $75,000 loan on a $100,000 property, on a $300,000 property, a $500,000 property. And every time it went up, I didn't change the loan amount, I just brought more money. So if you looked at my earnings, like if I had a personal affordability range, I probably maybe wouldn't have qualified for the home I got to buy, but it was because I brought so much money. So as that affordability number declines, all of us are making money on each of those homes, and we bring more money to the transaction. So CAR has a chart that just shows that just explodes. The repeat buyer puts down way more money, and so that affordability number, the only reason I like it, it's been repetitive. That's the thing. And the high numbers to me are meaningless. The only one that I land on is I'd be concerned if you got below 20% and thought, well, the mood is so good. Yeah, how could it stop? It's going to stop. Because, and exactly why he said, because enough lenders in unison say no to your next loan offer. That's when it ends. And, you know, usually it ends below 20%. And could it change? Sure. You have lenders say, well, the rules are very different. You can't have back-end ratios and all that. Yeah, you could have a challenge. There's no doubt that that's a wild card. What happens too is, going forward, they're going to figure out the safest loans they've ever written were in 2011 and 2012 and 2013 and so forth. They're going to look back and go, okay, do we have to make it more restrictive? And what happens is lending policies don't produce losses. If they're allowed to, then they let the reins go, and you'll see aggressive loan policies be rewarded with no foreclosures until they are rewarded with foreclosures. Do you have a bubble at that point? Yep. So will we have another bubble? My bet would be, yep. In California, yep. That's our history. I don't see how we don't do that again.
So if we're investing in 2014, Bruce, and the typical profile of a rehabber, you're going to buy it, you're going to fix it, you're going to flip it. What is it? Your business is doing great. Your loan business is doing great. You just said you had a record number of payoffs actually happen because properties sold.
Yes.
2014, if you could, I'm not going to say crystal ball, if you could tell me what you see going forward, what prototypical borrower in your company is buying, what range are they buying in, and how long is it taking them to get these things? You said it's harder for them to buy than it is to sell. You said they're selling very quick. It's harder to find deals.
The selling is slow, you know, and payoffs can be very, who knows what, like 5 months ago.
Okay.
There were virtually no payoffs. So if you thought, okay, things have really tightened up as far as sales and they're slower, our payoffs have been almost the opposite. 5 months ago, very few payoffs, and then tons of payoffs in the last 60 days. So I don't know. But going into 2014, just like always, and we talked about this at dinner, an investor doesn't need anything to change to end up with a profitable situation. So when you buy something in 2014, don't count on the number that you're going to get changing in a positive way. If it does, wow, that's great. But you know what? Don't hang yourself out to dry if that doesn't happen. We've had conversations during the night already. You know, I put this house up for sale, and should I just dump it, or should I, you know, it's hard to answer an individual question, but what you shouldn't do is put yourself in harm's way with any purchase. If you're going to get stuck with it, get stuck with a rental that makes sense. In other words, always have plan B for whatever you buy. You know, that's why when people come to us and say, I got a great deal on a $1.6 million house, well, I hope you find a loan for it. Because it's hard to want to make that loan because I don't have a positive second exit. You know, you're not going to rent that thing for 12 grand a month, and that's, you know, I'm worried about that. So that's where the deals are going to come from. Short sales will dissipate. You'll buy stuff directly from people. That's where they'll come from.
So it's going to be the equity seller that's going to really be a target going forward. You have, it's not the first time you've said that.
Right.
But the equity seller, it was gelling for me after our talk at dinner was, if these equity sellers have got their equities just ballooned. I mean, I've talked to a lot of these owners, as a lot of us have, when you're dialing for dollars or they're calling in. I've had a lot of stories where, man, I never thought this day would come. Oh, what day is that, Sean? I was underwater, and now I've overshot, and now I could actually walk away with a big check.
Yeah. Well, okay, and don't mean to take up too much time, but that's a category of person that to me matters going forward. That person that was upside down and now has their head over water. There's a thought that, okay, they finally are above water, they're going to sell and become a renter, and I'm not buying it. If anybody's proven they want to own something, it's that couple that made payments for 5 or 6 years being upside down. So they'll probably stay there and not until they have an equity position, not sell or go to get an FHA loan. The other big category of people that could provide volume as far as on the buyer side is the former owner that has just been told by FHA, you don't have to wait 3 years, but you only have 1 year to wait after a bankruptcy, a short sale, or a foreclosure. Well, you just took all those people that had to wait until 2015 and 2014 and shoved them into now. That's a volume change. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a really important point because, you know, I hear quite a bit, you know, well, the short sale business is over and, you know, I'm going to go do equity deals. I mean, look, half the folks that were underwater when this mess started are still underwater. And, you know, with 10% of owners with a mortgage that are still 20+% underwater, right? So even if we have just a bang up year and we go up 20%, they still don't have enough equity to sell and pay the realtor, right? So we've got a lot of people really, really stuck underwater. And with what Bruce just said, where you don't have to necessarily wait that long to buy again, for those folks that are that deeply underwater, it makes no sense to stay, and they should short sell. And you know, we have a lot of realtor customers and even investor customers that saying short sales are over. And I actually think this is one of the best opportunities ever because, you know, 3 years ago, you know, the banks wouldn't approve a short sale to somebody unless they missed their payments. Right. Now you can get a short sale if you haven't missed your payments. And there's a lot of folks deeply underwater that are still making their payments. And they have options now, and they probably don't know that.
And if you are current and you do a short sale, you can buy immediately. You don't have to even wait a year.
That's a big change. That really has, I think, really sparked to what you're saying.
There's a ton of opportunity right there.
Look, I know people in the audience who do short sales, and they're like, no, short sales are not over. Okay, sorry, Tina, you're going to talk about that on the 12th, probably.
Hi, Tina.
Well, the one thing that really would be kind of dependent on is the extending the tax break on forgiven debt. That'll come up again at the end of the year. So if they do that again, then you'll have a whole another year of the same stuff. You know, why would you, if a lender's willing to negotiate and say, I'll just take whatever the net is, and you can go rebuy a house right away, well, that would make sense.
We've got to dive into those rules because there's a lot of folks where SB 30 isn't necessary and they won't have tax consequences, and there's folks where it does need to get through, and we're pushing, and I know lots of people, California Association of Realtors, are pushing to get SB 33 through and make sure the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act continues.
What percentage of mortgages in California are delinquent at this point?
So it's 420,000 out of roughly 7 million.
So like a whole year of volume is delinquent.
Delinquent.
Right. Do you think?
How do we classify delinquent? 30 days, 90 days? Is there like a?
Is it over 90?
I think they still classify it as over 30 or 60.
Okay.
So, yeah, but not yet in foreclosure. There's another 70,000 in foreclosure, and there's about 45,000 that are bank owned, right? So you get about 550,000, you know, properties that, you know, where people aren't making payments and they have to turn over, which is more than a full year's of inventory.
Right. But a big improvement from where we were.
Huge.
So shadow inventory, though, is not an issue as far as you think, since we've been through all of the, sorry, I don't mean to ask questions, but.
Do you guys mind if he goes and talks? Nobody minds.
Well, I mean, I like his input on this because that's a lot of number that's behind the scenes churning. Do you think there's a willingness to foreclose on those people? No. Okay. So.
You know, I mean, keep in mind, you know, our auction investors bought $500 million worth of property last month. You know, it always cracks me up. People come in and say, well, you know, the trustee sales are over. You know, they're over for you. I understand, and they're a lot harder than they used to be. But $500 million got bought last month, and that's almost as much as back when there was the peak volume. Now, it's at much higher prices, and it's a different game. And you know, some of these guys are getting pretty sophisticated, where they're buying them with very little margin, but they're doing the escrow, and they're making the loan, and they're collecting the real estate commission, and you know, and so they're getting all this back end business. So there's no question that game has changed quite a bit and got a lot more sophisticated. But it's not over.
No.
Right. As you know, your business isn't over, and you're seeing it over and over again, and that's where what your buyers are doing and what you're lending on hasn't changed. It's not speculation; it's investment.
Right.
And you'd mentioned in your timing, you thought we were going to shoot over 20%
in 2013.
And you were right.
Yeah.
We did it.
All right.
what do you say to the people that say, oh, well, Bruce says it's going to go up again next year, so they continue to buy and not want to worry about it?
Yeah, so everybody's going to run.
There's a $1 million question.
I do think prices are going to go up, and I'll land on that space because I don't see how you get a lot more inventory. I don't see how you go from 3.5 months or whatever we're at to 6 months. If you have demand enough, that's 400 and some thousand sales, which I do believe we do. If it lands on 3.5 months of inventory, you're going to have price movement. If you have interest rates, all these things that normally are part of a California comeback that weren't really present at the end of 2012 are actually going to start kicking in. The improved employment, the improved migration, the improved construction, all those things will start being better. Now, if that goes in reverse, then then you're going to have a whole other situation. You'll be back at 3% interest rates. If you have a recession, we'll be right back to very low interest rates, and it'll be driven by nonsense. I mean, 2013 was driven by nonsense. It was, where's everything for sale? There wasn't. We decided not to do REOs like you thought. I didn't think that originally. I was still waiting for HUD auctions. Well, nope. They didn't do it that way. So anyway, I just do the math. I said, is there demand? Yes. Are they making policies that continue to add to demand? Yes. Are they encouraging builders to build? Apparently not, because there are no subdivisions that are, when you look at an annual number of subdivisions, Riverside is still down by 95% after a price run like we had in 2013. They're not creating the supply that they normally do. So then you have what Sean just said. We have this pile of people that are upside down that can't be a participant if they don't do a short sale. Well, we're drawing from a smaller pie, and we have normal demand, we have investor demand. If you have investor demand going down, it's not from the foreigners, because now they represent a bigger percentage than they did in 2012. So I just look at that and say, okay, I'll do the math. I would land on we're going to have price rises, and partly because we now have people locked and loaded with equity. They'll maybe want to relocate. That's where I land. But I don't want to invest like that's the only way I'm going to make a profit. If this stuff goes up, then I'm okay.
I think that's a really important piece. And I know sometimes people think I'm a little bit more on the pessimistic side. But, we're in unprecedented times, right? The chances of something going wrong, I think, are higher than normal. I think what Bruce just said is absolutely possible. It's absolutely possible we could have a good run next year. It's less likely next year than it was last year, than it was the year before, right? Because each year, as things crank up and continue to go up, right, that there's more likelihood of getting to that upper limit. And this comes back to something we've been touching on, but I think we should just clearly define, which is the difference between an investor and a speculator, right? And, I think now is a great time to invest in real estate. I'm concerned about speculating in real estate, and I'll define the difference as investing in real estate is you're buying something that makes sense right now. You don't need future appreciation. You don't need rents to go up for it to be a good deal. And if prices come down a little, or even rents come down, you can still get out and not get killed, right? And, I think if you have that approach to the mindset, then what changes is it was a lot easier to invest, at the beginning, or it was a lot easier to invest and get a good cap rate, on a rental in 2009 than it is today, right? But it doesn't mean you can't find high cap rate deals. It's harder work, right? But I think so long as folks are investing, it's an absolutely great time to be in the market. And there's this potential upside if the economy gets going and employment and all these things happen, then that's gravy, and it's a huge win. What I worry about is people going out and saying, well, the only deals I can find right now are at full market value, and the market's going to go up 20%, so I'm going to do well. That's just, I don't think that's a good strategy. So because people listen, I try to be a little bit more pessimistic, not to say don't, right? It's not in my best interest. My best interest would be say, hey, it's 20% next year, sign up for my software, go. But I'd rather you be still a customer in 10 years because you haven't lost any money and you've done well over those 10 years.
We talked about some of the areas that have already really gone nuts, San Francisco, some of the coastal areas in Newport Beach, and some of the areas that have historically done well. Bruce, you mentioned somebody saying, hey, I got a $1.2 million house, I think it's going to hit 1.6, right? That's a completely different animal. And Sean, you touched on one of the reasons you're concerned is that these rosy financial pictures that everybody's painting about these corporations, there's a cool statistic that I wrote down.
Yeah,
that 80% of corporations.
I wish I could tell you where that came from, but I have a buddy who's a hedge fund advisor, and he forwarded me this statistic, and I didn't follow up with him to ask the source and the rest. So take it with a grain of salt, go verify it. But he said, I think in the last either 5 or 10 years, 80% of the increase in corporate earnings has been driven by cheaper financing costs. That's pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. You said you've got mid-level guys, making a couple $1 million a year, and they're just throwing money at these houses in the Silicon Valley. How does the current situation, it looks good for Silicon Valley, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, the great news about, quantitative easing and low interest rates and all the rest is companies can borrow cheaply, right? There is, if you want to start a tech firm in the Valley, the problem is not money, it's talent. And you'll pay whatever you have to pay, for talent. I mean, I get regular things in my inbox saying, hey, refer a software engineer, and I'll send you 10 grand, and so that's hot right now, and so it's attracting folks, and it's attracting folks for a lot of money. Again, I know mid-level guys making $1 million a year at big companies in Silicon Valley, and they're spending $3-4 million on a house. And it's a bubble, but I don't see, there's not an obvious end to it right now, because we can't pull back the juice because it would slow down the economy. We just saw that with the Fed's decision not to back on quantitative easing, right? So when does that end? And is Silicon Valley a bubble by historical senses? Absolutely. But what we have is we have displacement of guys coming in earning a lot of money. So it's going up for the right reasons, which is people are getting paid a lot of money and could afford it. But how long does that last? And I think a lot of it comes down to this really cheap corporate financing that's fueling that.
It's the affordability in San Jose, like 6.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Probably
but that's
below
based
10.
on the median income, and the median income
Couldn't buy that
is
house.
not the median income folks in San Jose are just being displaced.
Mm-hmm. But they're leaving with $2 million, so that's helpful.
Well, the good news is, and where do they go? They go inland, to Tracy and then Brentwood and then into ultimately Merced, right? And that's what happened supposedly in Merced last time.
Best thing that happened to Tracy in a while. Oh my gosh, that place was just a wide spot in the dirt last time I was up there. So with all these, you made a point, and we've said it here again. There's a lot of regulatory changes that are set to click in January. Not only that, but we're going to have to revisit the whole budget again in February because in their infinite wisdom, our Congress decided to only kick the can down the road. You said we thought cooler heads would prevail, and they obviously didn't. So kind of maybe the setting for the perfect storm coming up, we have a lot of this regulation. President of the Mortgage Bankers Association said clearly, until we figure out what we're going to do nothing. If this causes damage to the California real estate market, you made a point, does that really matter on a national level? You mentioned something about the price damage chart. Can you explain how Fannie Mae's price or damage chart affects, I mean, California's
a big piece of the damage that happened after 2007. So whatever percentage of the loan balance we had, we were about 30% of their damage path. So they lost obviously the biggest chunk of money for one state was here. So you'd have higher foreclosure rates maybe in Nevada or whatever, but the dollars were lost here. And so, yeah, they care about policies, that would negatively affect California, but you're still going to you have Dodd-Frank, you have national policies that are going to make lending more difficult. I think a lot of that's been implemented, though. We interviewed a guy from Providence Savings, I think it was, and, they've been doing Dodd-Frank for already 8 months. In other words, their lending business has been that policy already because they don't want to buy back the loans. So I don't think, and Sean mentioned this, it's not going to be like the end of the world because we already know the end of the world was coming, so we kind of get ready for it. But, I think private money, this was John Burns being on the panel, was kind of a nice addition because he's a consultant for hedge funds and for builders and getting an insight. And he really said, if it wasn't in the front of the audience, but I thought it was, that there's not just a few dollars, trillions of dollars waiting to participate in the mortgage market if they know what the rules are in place for the other side. So there will be capital that will be out at 5%, or so for private money. That will work, And once again, if they get rewarded without losses, then they get more and more aggressive. I mean, there's stated income loans right now again. It's 30% down, but it's there. And so that's what happens. You start your competitors doing that. Oh, okay, well, maybe we can do 25% down and then 20 or whatever. As long as they're allowed to do it and it's a portfolio of loans that are successful, I think that's where we're headed. And probably in a healthier way because that way government's not at risk as much.
And you'd mentioned if they're allowed to do it. And Sean, you said, well, why would another lender want to get in the business if you're not even allowed to foreclose out your interest in it?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty, I testified at a state Senate finance banking committee hearing on the homeowner bill of rights. And, they had everybody from the consumer groups who were basically saying, hey, we need a lot more foreclosure prevention and it needs to be harder to foreclose, to the lenders basically saying, look, it takes us a year to foreclose and it's pretty hard. And, the whole idea behind non-judicial foreclosure, right, where you don't have to go in front of a judge is, you're going to make it easier for us, for the lender, to foreclose, right? But we can't come after the homeowner for the deficiency balance. And, that was kind of the trade-off of how we got to non-judicial foreclosure. And, at this point, with it taking a year, it's getting close to the point where it's worthwhile for the lenders to go down the judicial foreclosure path and go after the homeowner for that deficiency balance. So, it's one of these things where you got to be careful what you ask for, but it's definitely a very different environment than it was 5 years ago, where if you make a loan and the person doesn't pay, it takes 120 days, right? And then you can resell the property and take it back and resell it. And that's not true, anymore. And it's becoming less certain, not more certain. And suddenly you have to do, calculations about what the least loss is and all these other things. And, it's not clear you're going to get your money back if something, if the market tips just for a little while. Do people get to take advantage of that and live in their house for free for years until the market comes back up? You made a 30-year loan. Why isn't it a 30-year commitment the other way?
Right, and again, a lot of this was engineered by the people higher up. We talked about this. It's better for them to stall this out and get maybe behind the scenes, behind this legislation, so they can freeze their loss. And a lot of them are converting their homeowners to tenants.
And that's happening mostly outside of the banks. They're selling off those assets, and somebody else is doing that. But yeah.
And that's just pretty much if you're looking to put any money away in savings, you're getting annihilated right now. And how is that affecting the net savers? We talked about the 99% versus the 1%, and who's making the policy right now, and how does that help or hurt California real estate?
And this is my big thesis. This is why I continue to run, the site and be, even though I'm concerned about a lot of things in the economy, of lending next year and all the rest, I really don't think that there's any better place to be than real estate, because we're punishing savers, left and right. And, the debt that we're running up and the rest, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from now, I really see the only way out as inflation. And real estate's a great inflation hedge. And that's where, to be a renter and have your rent go up, 10% a year, right, versus fixing in a 30-year mortgage and have flat rent for the next 30 years, I mean, that's the power of home ownership. I mean, plain and simple, is fixing your payment for 30 years. This whole thing where we turn, homeowners into speculators, where they're churning and changing houses every couple of years and retaking 30-year loans, I think is part of the disaster we just had. And that was really the first time, we've done that. We've got more retirees going into retirement with a mortgage than we've ever had before. And I think that's still a coming, disaster as we have more folks leaning on it. We're now at 49% of the population gets some sort of federal subsidy or government subsidy. So, how far can you take that?
So we talk about cars numbers, talked about the damage chart. I call it the damage chart, that California. So as California goes, so does the rest of the nation go. And what I mean by that is, as these policies start implementing, how likely are they to recognize the damage fast enough to start maybe reversing some of these things? And Sean had said, well, maybe they don't really care what happens in California, because if it's not hurting the nation, what's the likelihood of that?
I think that so you look at the makeup of Senate and Congress, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks that think, those wacky Californias left, whatever. There's a lot of the nation that thinks we're out to lunch. And why are we supporting, the mortgage interest deduction basically helps just a couple of states, primarily California and New York, right?
Right.
You get the higher loan limits, basically just help a couple of states. And so, the idea that you're going to get all of Congress to say, yeah, we should continue to support higher loan limits for these couple of states, I think that is, I don't mean that it won't hurt if they bring those things down and it hurts the California economy. I think it hurts the national economy. But I think that there are a lot of folks in a lot of other states that don't think we matter. And I think they're wrong.
Right. You likened it to really just kind of kicking us in the gut by having an economic recovery that looks like it's going, and even though it may be led by some of these interest cost savings, like Sean mentioned, you said, what exactly at the wrong time, and it's typically when they do it, isn't it? At exactly the wrong time, they start putting a clamp down on real estate and in the recovery.
Well, construction is probably at a multi-decade low as far as a participant in GDP, and just participating in going up. And so now you have Dodd-Frank being implemented. That's going to be a headwind. The builders are building far less homes across the nation. So you start discouraging the economy and you have another recession. So, somebody's going to look at what they've done and go, it's maybe overkill. How quickly they'll react to that, I don't know. But I would, that's a political problem. You start having unemployment go the other way. Okay, now that could happen if they really put the kibosh on real estate to where our volume actually does go down, 20% or something like that in California. That's going to be mimicked around the country. You're going to have that be, you could have a recession. All of a sudden now you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction to more Fed participation, lower interest rate, but you've stalled something that you didn't have to stall. To me, that's the problem. The Fed lowering their loan rate, or especially FHA, because FHA to me is the key. I wouldn't want to hear them lower that to a former ratio to Fannie Mae's loan limit. I mean, that's a very different number than where it's at. we just did an event last year, and we had a chapter about that, showing the history of the FHA loan balance. I think it usually is a multiple of, say, half of Fannie Mae's loan limit. So you wouldn't want to all of a sudden wake up one morning and have the maximum FHA loan limit in Riverside 210 grand. That'd be a problem, because all those first-time buyers or all those people that came off of foreclosure, which is that's the loan they can get. Yeah, you can get a loan, but you can only buy 5% of the entire inventory because everything is higher. So I don't think once you get into that high price loan, I don't know how you back out of it quickly. And they're not. Their loan numbers are going to come down a certain percentage a year probably. So, but we're talking about next year. So is going from whatever it is, 600 to 570 devastating? No.
Mm-hmm. Sean, what if anything is the biggest change that you're going to make in your business? Because you serve investors who buy your product. Mm-hmm. What's the biggest change that you see that you would advise your customer base to make in 2014, if any change, when it comes to how they evaluate their buys?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the main thing, there's no question we're hearing from our customers, it's getting harder to invest. Harder to speculate, it's easy to speculate. But it's getting harder to invest, more competition, more dollars in the market, fewer foreclosures, fewer opportunities. And, we hear that, and that's part of the reason we launched a new product, is to help people find new ways to go find inventory. So I think that really continues to be the challenge for 2014. We've really, one of the things our product does is focus on that underwater homeowner, but also all the other classic real estate investing, non-owner occupied and free and clear, and all those different strategies that are taught by every guru of the week. They all come down to basically the same strategies, and we try to make all of those now available, because we had a lot of our investor customers were ex-contractors, builders, commercial realtors, and even realtors that, when the downturn happened, they needed to find something else. They found Trustee Sales and they found us, but they haven't really invested outside of foreclosures. And there's a whole bunch of other ways to invest in real estate besides foreclosures. And so, we're just trying to remind them that, hey, you don't need to give up, the rehab crews you built and everything else. Mm-hmm. As stuff slows down changes over here, it gets more competitive. There's all these other opportunities. So that's
sourcing their buys is more important now. It's already important, but it's continued to be, in your opinion, for 2014, is like you said, hey, if you did one thing, you may have to put 6 or 7 things in place now and work them just as hard. Yeah, you're going to still
at least be open to the new thing.
Right.
So the one constant in this business, and one of the things that I hate about a lot of the paid gurus, is they come around and they come out of Florida or whatever and say, this is the way to invest in real estate. Even when I was buying, there was constantly change. Change is the only constant, right? So if you're not good with change, this may not be the right business for you.
Just make a comment about it being harder to buy. It's in comparison to a 2009, 10, 11, etc.
Which is the easiest time.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
And a lot of people got into the business then. So now it's hard, but it's not as hard as it was in 03, 04. Because 03, 04, there was a lot more volume, 30% more volume chasing, less inventory. That month supply of inventory was camped below 3 months for several years in a row, and people still made money. But what we do is we all start drinking the speculative Kool-Aid of this is going to go up. So speculation is very, very profitable until it isn't. Yeah. And then it's devastating if you don't have some matrix that says enough is enough.
Which is why it's the primary reason I'm really careful about not saying, hey, I think it's going to be a big year next year, because it could be. I don't see, unless we have some major black swan event, something really goes off the rails, I don't see it being a huge down year. There's not enough problems in the market for there to be like a big bust in my mind. I think the worst kind of case scenario is maybe a slight decrease in prices, but in lower volume. I think that's kind of in my mind, that's the worst case scenario. Outside of something, the rail's going completely off the bus, the Fed loses control and interest rates go to 18%, which is almost impossible in my mind. Not impossible, but almost impossible. So, I think that's it's really, really a good environment. In 2004, when I was making really good money buying at the trustee sales, there was 200 to 300 trustee sales a month, right? We're an order of magnitude higher than that right now, right? I mean, we were talking, you're talking about millions of dollars a month in sales. Right now we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars a month.
$500 million.
$500 million. So, I mean, is it harder than last year? Yes. Is it harder than the year before? Yes. Is it, still really good? I think yes. And I think a lot of folks got really spoiled the last few years. And so I guess saying it to a big crowd, stop whining.
No.
Right, the price you pay for a property continues to creep up a little bit, and it's almost like people can look back to the last big push and say, man, I wish I would have bought more the last time, or I'm going to make it. I think there's some people that are like, I'm going to make back some of the losses I made.
Yeah, that
I've seen that. I've heard that.
Well, I've heard a lot of that in 08, 9. That was always the I lost $2 million. I've got $500,000 left. I got to make up that $2 million. You don't make it up in the next 6 months. You're going to lose the rest of what you got. You can't do that.
Yeah, you get in that position. You feel like you need to take more and more risks to get back to where you were, and that's just a sure recipe for failure. Think about how you got there the first time and go back and do that again. It's hard work.
I had somebody tell me they were going to buy 20 houses in Detroit or something. And I said, okay, did you go see them? No. I said, okay, well, why are you buying them? He said, well, they're cheap. They're $5,000 a piece. I said, okay, so you're going to get 20 houses for $100,000. And he said, yeah. And I said, is there like a disclosure with the purchase? He said, yeah. So I got the paper, and the first line said, these properties may no longer exist on the lots. And the second line said, if it does exist, the tax bill or the fines by the city may, in fact, be greater than the value of the property. Those were the first two lines of a 20 disclosure, but it didn't matter. $100,000 went to Detroit to buy those homes because they had to make up for lost net worth. Wow. I mean, that's human nature. See, that's why I like charts, because it's not just a chart. It's you can count on the human being doing the same thing. Oh yeah, real estate hurt me. I won't touch that until it gets to 2003, and it's like, yeah. And then that's what we do if we're allowed to. Now, Sean's got a good point. The lenders have to participate. But I'd like to know how they're going to make money when their refi business it's down 70%. So if you're in the loan business, you're going to make loans on purchase money. Well, then you're going to fight over that customer, and you can't all be at 30% down. I'm not buying it. So some private money is going to come in there and go, let's rock and roll. And they're going to create some programs that are going to be aggressive, would be my guess. Or real estate is never going to be what it was like, ever. Because that literally will be the decision that home ownership doesn't make too much difference anymore, because we're going to have restrictions and the down payments are going to be so big that we are going to have occupant ownership go below 50%, and that's fine. I'm not buying that's where we're headed.
I'm going to really disagree with you on this one, because I think the best thing we could do is limit lending to encourage home ownership, right? So if we didn't stop allowing bubbles to occur and allowing affordability to go to 20%, by the only way that should happen is by people bringing cash to the table. I personally think we should limit loan government-backed loans, right? Let private money do whatever it wants, which we don't do anymore. By the way, we're regulating private money ridiculously. You know, that's what all this qualified mortgage and affordability rules and all of this is limiting what we can loan to somebody, which I don't think we should do on the private side. But on government-backed money, I think we should limit it to where the loan payment can't be much more than rent. So, you know, you're basically going to have a loan payment at rent. You're going to bring some cash to the table to be an owner versus not. And if we did that, I think we'd have far more stable real estate markets and a much higher home ownership percentage.
But do we really?
And I think we make easy foreclosure, right? Because at the end of the day, I can make a loan to anybody, right? In 2008, I would have gladly lent anybody on the planet if it was legal for me to make loans to homeowners, and it's technically legal, but it's so impractical that it's illegal. I would have lent anybody money to buy a house, right? Because if they didn't make the payment, I'd just kick them out, and I could rent it for more than the payment was. I mean, there was no reason. We should have been making pulse loans in 2009, right? We should not have been making pulse loans in 2007, and we do exactly the opposite of what makes sense.
Every time.
When you say we, it's not the investors who are looking at this. It is people trying to churn the market, because it doesn't make any. You want these large swings to happen, not just because speculating is fun, isn't it? Isn't it fun? So it's not fun?
I can make money in real estate without big swings in the market. Big swings in the market cause
You're Sean
nothing
O'Toole.
but
Of course you
devastation.
can.
Anybody can. You know, the big swings in the market do stuff like, you know, the big swing we had through 2007 let lots of state and county and city governments believe that they were going to have this gravy train forever. And then they made all kinds of commitments based on that, and the rug got pulled out from under them, and now we've got, you know, cities going bankrupt. You know, so these swings, especially in real estate, which drive property tax revenues and schools and all these other things, having these big swings in real estate, yeah, they can be good for investors if you're good at market timing and you get in the bottom, get out in the end. But I'd rather be like a consistent real estate investor and just making money all the time and not having to worry about timing the bottom and timing the top. If we had a stable real estate market, it would be better for everyone, including investors.
There are states like that. You can go to Oklahoma. It never moves. It's like, that's the prototypical perfect state. Because you have cash flow.
Until a tornado comes.
Well, yeah, there's always something.
You see, we're debating. Hey, by the way, if you've got questions, hold them up and then pass them to the center. And Sarah, are you in the room?
She already left.
Is Clint here? Clint, would you do me a favor? Thank you. Could you, great, hand up your questions and Clint will pick them up and he'll bring them up here to me. Tell me what Eric Jansen thinks about what's going to happen in 2014.
So Eric came and spoke at Bruce's event a year before last.
Right.
I think.
Twice.
And oh yeah, it was twice.
Twice in a
right?
row.
Yeah. And he's my favorite economist. I didn't know in 1999 I got out of stocks, right? Which was I sold all my stocks, which was a really good call. And after the fact, I read Eric's, you know, writings, and he was telling everybody in late 1999 to get the heck out of stocks. And I'm like, oh, I like this guy. He's smart. And so I started reading him around 2001, 2002, and he said, you know, buy gold, right? And gold was $240, $260 an ounce. And so I said, you know, well, he was right before, and I like his reasoning and his thought. He's hard to read. You know, he's got a website called iTulip. It's hard to read. He's very intellectual, but you know, I still think he's the smartest guy I've ever met. So I don't want to scare anybody, but he does think the wheels are going to come off the bus maybe next year.
And what's the number one reason, if there's one, that he says that's his fear?
You know, we're in a trap right now where in order to sustain the debts that we've created, we need certain GDP growth. And we need GDP growth in order to sustain where we're at, to be around 4%. And he calls this the
output gap.
Output gap. And the after the Great Depression, that output gap closed much faster than it has over our Great Recession. And this output gap has been kind of really persistent. And basically, we're not growing the economy enough to catch up with the stimulus that we're putting in the market. It's this whole Keynesian economics idea that we can stimulate our way out of this to get things jump-started. And I think that's a failed experiment, and he thinks that's going to come to a head possibly in 2014. And I agree. I think most of our economic growth over the last 30 years has been driven by cheaper financing. And we're now at the zero bounds of that, right? It's not like we've been growing the economy with all of the fabulous manufacturing we're doing, right? Most of the ways we're growing the economy and technology and things like that are increasing productivity, but we need fewer people, right? So even the places that are growing, they're growing without the need for people. And I think this is part of this fundamental 99% versus the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, because we need the middle class.
Bruce, what's the one, before we do the questions in a minute, what's one thing?
I'm too depressed to talk now.
Do you have output gap disease now? That's what I heard, the output gap. What's one thing that if you see it happen in 2014 is your biggest concern as it affects real estate? What's one thing that you go, if that happens, that's the main domino?
I really mentioned that I think if they get very aggressive in lowering the FHA loan balance, which would be historically in their guidelines,
okay,
that would affect too many buyers, and you would have no choice but to have an immediate price decline, in my opinion, because the only thing they could buy would be something that would be so far below median price. I remember in Riverside, we would get happy every time FHA would raise their loan limit, because whatever you owned ran to that limit very quickly. So as they would go up from 120 to 135, everything you owned that was 120 would be 135. It seemed like in a nanosecond.
Just because what you said, as soon as you get to that's the top, that's what I'm going to buy, right?
Well, especially if that's the only game you're allowed to play.
Right.
Fannie and Freddie are still at what, 7 years after foreclosure?
Yeah.
And now FHA is 1 year. So you have all these people that just got foreclosed. The only loan they can get is FHA, but the loan limit is bigger than, or at least as big as Fannie Mae's limit. So that is unusual. Yeah, if you told me FHA is going to revert to its normal percentage of Fannie, yeah, there would be immediate bulletin from the Norris group going, uh-oh.
That's his uh-oh moment. What's the number one uh-oh moment for you if you see it coming or know it's going to happen in 2014? You'd be like, man, brakes are on.
And I've said this, everybody that's heard me speak has heard me say, and I think the reason I am cautious, right? I maybe focus a little bit too much on what could go wrong, because, I don't think it will.
Are you a glass half full guy?
I'm a glass half full guy, but it served me well over the years, right? I got out in 2005 when all my partners said, hey, we should be being more aggressive than whatever. And I still made money, I just wasn't quite as speculative as some others. So I'm always thinking about that, But what you can't do is you can't do analysis paralysis, where you let that stop you from doing deals. So if you hear me say, look, this guy says maybe the wheels are going to come off the bus, and there's these risks in the market, right? You're going to sit on your hands, right? We still have this great market and opportunity right now. And if you're not taking advantage of it, then you're going to be less prepared if something does happen. I'm a real big believer in the book, Nassim Taleb wrote, The Black Swan, which is, it is normal to have unexpected things happen, right? So we may not know what the thing is, but it's normal that something's going to happen that's going to shake us all up, and it can be good or bad. The internet is a black swan. It changed lots of things. It destroyed lots of businesses, right? But it was also a huge opportunity. So, I just, maybe the reason I'm a little bit more glass half full is because, invariably, as we're doing the meet and greet outside, I have somebody tell me about, oh yeah, I just bought, all this stuff and, this or that. And it's like, it makes no sense to me. And I just, so I'm trying to reach that person who's like, gone a little too crazy, and take a step back, work a little harder, find deals that make sense. You can make money. If you're trying to make money for not doing any work and just showing up and having deals fall out on your lap, and to not have to do anything and not have to really do research for them and all the rest, you're playing with fire, and I think you're going to get hurt. And I'll still take your $59 a month or $49 a month. But
I told you
really,
so.
But I'd really rather, you were in it for the long haul, and you worked a little harder, and you took the time to learn what all this data means, and you worked a little harder to find those deals, and we're there for the long haul. You can still make money, right? I have made money. I was making money in 2004 when there were really no deals. I mean, far fewer deals then, than now. So
there's someone in the audience that's really had a very positive effect on my life, and it was Jack Fullerton. He's here, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
And he asked me a question. He was the first person that ever asked me to speak to his club. And along the way, he asked me, he says, Bruce, what happens to you? What happens to your family if you get sick? And at the time he asked that question, everything that I had going on needed Bruce Norris's participation to get done, get finished. And he finally got to me, and the day my financial life changed was when I no longer need monthly revenue to survive. So that's really what this whole little cycle has been about, is an opportunity to set yourself up to where your monthly nut is covered, and that whatever happens, you can go, well, you still want to go to Hawaii? In other words, your life isn't going to get blown out of the water because something changed. The one thing about the Black Swan book, it said it was retrospectively obvious. There's a lot of things that we're going to look back and go, well, how else could that have turned out? But because it's not happening right now, we don't buy that it's likely. That's the truth. And that was prices in 05, 06. I looked at ratios. You must have looked at ratios and go, how are we affording a mortgage at 10 times our gross income? That's not supposed to happen and never has. That's going to blow up, and it did eventually. So, that's the idea, is put yourself, your family in a place where, as an investor, yeah, I am so like no debt, and that's my mindset. I didn't take advantage of huge leverage this time because I didn't care to live what that means, I just didn't. So
that was a trade-off you weren't willing to make this time.
Didn't need to.
Okay.
I didn't need anything else, But when you're trying to get there, that's it's hard. You have to use leverage.
All right, we're going to get to your questions. The first question has to do with Blackstone. For those who don't know, Blackstone is a hedge fund. And this question says, with the recent push by Blackstone to securitize the cash flow of their rents, we are starting to see the beginning of a secondary market again. Do you think this will ultimately have the same trajectory as the ramp up in the 2000s, followed by a 2008 crash? Or will these cash flow securities ultimately be a more stable product and inject some much needed liquidity into the world of rental real estate? I know, right? That's a thinker question.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me give him any questions beforehand, so these are
off the cuff.
Right off the cuff.
I guess it depends how it works out, because I'm sure their rent projections might not materialize quite in the form that they think. And the volume, when you're talking about rent revenue, whatever, like how big could that pile be? We're talking about something that starts with a B, where if you're doing mortgages, when you're doing securities backed with mortgages, you're probably talking 100 billion or a trillion or whatever. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's a good start.
I worry about the tail wagging the dog, right? So one of the things I really like about real estate is it's not a fast-moving market, which makes it easier to, Bruce can make a prediction for the next 2 years and not have to come back and do another market update. If we start securitizing, a big chunk of real estate into something that's traded daily, and starts getting traded on computer algorithms and, you know, news headlines and other stuff, you know, I really think the tail could wag the dog a little bit, and when we start overreacting more quickly in the real estate market, maybe that provides a little bit more instant feedback to help keep things on track, but I'm not so sure. I think it also could be an amplification loop, and you know, oh wow, that thing just dropped 20%. You know, who knows, because of a trading glitch or whatever. Holy moly, the wheels are coming off the bus on housing. It's a sign because the market knows, you know, and therefore, you know, housing's terrible, right? And so I don't know. I think it's probably an inevitable, you know, course that there's been a lot of people trying to turn housing into something that can be traded on a daily basis for hedging purposes and lots of other purposes, but I don't know that it's a good thing.
Okay. This one says, since this year the government shutdown had a negative impact on the real estate market, what can we expect in January? Did it have a fairly negative impact on it? Well, I mean, I heard some people with VA loans maybe and got stalled out.
Yeah. I like Sean's conclusion about two simultaneous events. It doesn't necessarily go together. You know, you can always look at two charts and go, we'll see that, and then you blame one on the other and say, but that's not necessarily true. So
correlation isn't causation, my dad, the logic professor, would say.
Yeah, and so I guess I'd buy into that. You know, one thing we did is we went up an enormous amount very quickly, and usually when you have a price increase, the first year is very, very minor, and the second year is a little better, and the third year is a little better. We used up 3.5 years of price run in 12 months. And, you know, so now we're talking about, oh, it's slow, and maybe we're giving some back. That's probably a healthier thing than cranking up 25% on top of 25%. I mean, I really don't, I don't mind it slowing, because I would like the single family owner to get a chance to buy a residence at this price, at this interest rate. I wouldn't have wanted to have been a 22-year-old trying to compete against hedge funds to buy an as-is property. We just had an interesting flip. So apparently Riverside's not dead, I can tell you that. We had a house that was flipped to us by a guy who found his first wholesale deal. He sold it to us for $100 grand. He bought it for 90. We didn't know what we were going to do with it. So it sort of sit around for 45 days. We did do a termite report. It was the worst termite report I'd ever seen in my whole life. I mean, the entire structure was numbers everywhere. I thought, wow, I just never seen anything like that. And so we were actually going to fix it, and then we decided, well, let's put it in the MLS. So a bidding war ensued. I mean, with the termite attached, saying will not accept a bid until you see you sign off on the termite report and you physically go inspect the property. So many offers came in, and the thing finally sold for $157,000. As is, we never touched it, you know. So there were a lot of people fighting over that property, and my thought was, we need to get more of these.
But,
so Bruce is buying.
It's an interesting thing, because one of the strategies I was using in 2005, or one of the things I found was I could put a property, so let's say I had a property that cost $10,000 to do the repairs on, right? And I could sell that property for $200 repaired, right? Or let's say $20,000 in repairs. I could sell it for $200 repaired, or I could sell it as $190 as a fixer, even though it was going to cost that person $20,000 to repair it. One of these human behaviors that you can rely on is that people believe in sweat equity, and they believe that if they're buying something that's a fixer and they're going to put their weekends on it, that they're going to make money, even though they just paid $10,000 over market, and they're going to pay $210 by the time they're done and waste every weekend for the next year. You know, had they just bought the house that was $10,000 more and didn't need $20,000 worth of work. But I think that's one of these human behaviors that right now people say, oh, well, the market's getting a little, oh, but that's a fixer, that's a deal, you know, and they'll spend more on the fixer. So for those of you selling,
Try that.
think carefully right now about fixing. And I would put stuff on the market for a week, as a fixer, with a note in the MLS and saying, hey, this is a fixer 1 week only, and then it's going to come back on the market. And some people said that was a bad strategy because you said you were willing to sell it for this, and then when you come back at the higher dollar amount, it tells people that you might be willing to come down. But I never had a problem with it.
We had just one other example of that, about an as-is property. About 2007 or 8, we had a failed attempt to become an auction company. And we had gotten, I think, 8 new homes, and we had half a dozen of our own fixer that we already fixed. And we had one junker, then Rick Solis found it, and it was just ugly. It's 3,000 square feet of ugly. And it was pink inside, it was just, and nothing had ever been changed from 1970. And we really thought about, what do we do? We'll just throw it in the auction. It was the only property that sold and made $100 grand because 2 people wanted it. And just go, wow.
Bidding war. This question's for you, Sean, first, and then there's one for you, Bruce. Sean, you talked about being an investor in this market instead of a speculator, and you said to buy a good investment. What is a good investment in terms of cap rate in today's market?
Yeah, so and this depends on whether you're a flip or a hold, right? And, different people have different needs. So if you're sitting on a pile of cash and you're looking at 2% from a CD or less, 1%, 4 or 5% may look good to you. And if that's enough to get you through retirement, whatever your financial goals are, that's going to be different for somebody else who needs 9 or 10. And I would say there, what you have really is a choice then of location. Right? There are places in California you can still get a 10% ROI. There are places in California where the ROI is now down around 1.5% at current market values. So, and you have to think about what other people feel. One of the ways that I knew to get out in 2005 was that in my little town out in the cornfields up north, the cap rates were down to 1.5%. That was clearly a bubble. It's not, golf property in Pebble Beach.
And the other way you can build in equity by learning to buy below market, or learn what Bill Tan knows and how to finance cash flow into the deal. There are ways to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's to say that there's one answer, I think it is tough. One thing you can look at is the institutional investors, really came in to California with a target of 7. And I think, kind of like median prices, which I think are very low value overall. If you kind of say 7 is kind of that overall, and it's going to get less as you get out close to the coast and more desirable, and more as you come inland, that's probably as good a number as any. When Bruce and I went back to the Library of Congress, that was one of the main things we wanted to look at. And, I was surprised to find, because I was in high school when we went through that period of inflation, and my parents finally built their dream home, and when they started building, interest rates were at 8%. And when they finished building and had to do the takeout financing, rates were at 18%. And it really, really hurt my family, deeply for that period of time. We didn't have a choice. You had to do the takeout financing. And, so my perception of rates was, that mortgage rates should be 6, 7, 8%, and that a good return on investment on rental property should be 10%. But I was surprised to find ads from the late 1800s, pitching real estate as a great investment with a 5% return. Mm-hmm. So, what is that right number? I think it changes over time and the rest. What's a good return right now when, banks are paying the rate of return that they are?
It's
very different than what it was 10 years ago.
So it really depends on where your money is now, what's it doing, and how hard do you have to work for what you're getting now.
And is your principal
and what
at
meets
risk?
Your goals?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you start rolling the dice and you're risking principal, then that's a dangerous proposition.
For long-term real estate investors, what is the trend of price appreciation in the next 10 years? And it follows up and says, when will it reach 50%, 75, or even 100% from today, if ever? So I guess they're trying to, is there like a correlation between over the next 10 years, could you count on?
Yeah. I'll answer that in this way. We have a repetitive ending place for me that I'll look at. There's 4 different charts I look at. I'll just mention one. Affordability has to do with not just price aggression, it has to do with interest rate hikes, it has to do with wage rises or stagnation. When you get to that number, it's over historically. So can you absorb 100% price increase and an interest rate hike from these price levels? No. So you have different answers in every county, which is why we bothered to break that down. You have more aggression possible in Riverside and San Bernardino than you do in San Francisco. Okay, so we've used up a lot of that juice, if you would, in some areas and not in others. So that's, if you could consider the appreciation a bonus to what you already have when you buy it, that would be a good idea.
Well, shoot,
I'm more concerned. Actually, I'm really more concerned after the next ending, if you will, because for my entire adult life, have watched interest rates go from the 18% that rewarded the saver all the way down to rewarding only leveraged risk and punishing the saver. I wish I could look forward and say, will the next 30 years reward the saver again? I mean, that could flip-flop. And if it does, then you're talking about owning something that has to appreciate into the teeth of rising interest rates over a long period of time. That would be very hard to do. So that's so you asked a shorter term question. I think we're going to have room for price increases and interest rate hikes. I don't think interest rate hikes make the prices go down until you get to that magic number. That's just historically what I believe will be replicated. I lived through interest rate hikes, and it made me I was more urgent to make a decision because as a young man who was stalling, I paid a higher price and a higher payment monthly because I didn't get in at 8, I got in at 9.5. And that played on me like, okay, I guess I have to do it. Okay.
If I can answer that one too. I actually don't believe generally there is appreciation in real estate. I think for the most part there's only inflation, right? So it's not real estate going up in value, it's the dollar going down in value. Now, there's exceptions to that, right? Pebble Beach before the golf course, right? That's appreciation, right? When something fundamentally changes value, you can have appreciation. Detroit after, the car maker problem, that's true depreciation, right? So, but I think most of the rest is inflation. When you say, boy, our parents bought that house for $60,000 and now it's worth $600,000. Right. That's almost all inflation. Back then gas was a quarter or whatever. Yeah. And so you got to separate those two things out. And again, I come back to, I think real estate's a great investment because of its value as an inflation hedge. For a homeowner, it's a great investment because it allows you to fix rent over a long period of time, right? As an investor that's a buy and hold investor, right? Your cap rate goes up, right? That initial investment, as inflation happens, rents inflate, and you get more and more return on that initial investment, which is an inflation hedge, protects you, as it's going up. So those are the reasons I like real estate. But we have cycles, but I don't think cycles are fundamentally, the ups and downs are fundamentally appreciation. I think that's more.
It's almost like you said, your cost of entry, your barrier of entry, the sooner you start it, and if you hold it longer, inflation would, like you mentioned, your parents, your grandparents, we paid $60,000. Well, if you looked at real estate in 50-year chunks instead of 5-year chunks, you're going to be way better off over 50
Always
years.
And I think over the long run, it's done better than the, stock market. Now, you can't compare 2006 to 2013, right? But if you compare longer returns, I think it's a great place to be.
What role, if any, will the private sector play in a secondary mortgage market in 2014 and 2015?
my opinion, it'll grow. It'll grow from small beginnings to be a fairly big participant, would be my guess.
And what about you, Sean?
Um,
Private money in the secondary mortgage market.
yeah. You know, it certainly could grow, but I think it'll primarily grow because of you know, the sources of that being still kind of backed by the financial games. You know, there's no question there's a lot of money. I mean, look, I personally think we should remove all the rules, you know, or a lot of the rules from home lending, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to make loans to homeowners, and I think it should be simple, right? If we say the lender is more sophisticated than the buyer, right? Leave it easy to foreclose, right? But with no, and nationally, you know, California is pretty unique in this idea of recourse. You know, so if you make the rules simply that, you know, hey, you can loan this person money, but if they decide they don't want to pay you anymore, you have no recourse after them personally. You just
get your collateral.
You just
back.
get your collateral back. And I think if we change the rules to that, you know, and at the end of the day, I can't, you know, I need to stay somewhat personally invested if I make that loan. You know, and this probably applies to Bank of America, et cetera, too, right? I can't just package this thing up and sell it off and say that it's good because, you know, some rating agency stamped it, and I don't have any risks, so therefore I'm going to shovel shit. You know, if they still have a stake in that and they personally are going to take some losses in that, I think you're going to get the market to self-regulate without all these insane rules that we're putting in place right now.
Bruce, you've mentioned that condos hit their price peak near the very end of quadrant 4. How does this factor in with the 4 proofs for selling that you laid out in California Comeback 2? Do you hold on to the condos for a little bit longer than a single-family residence? Somebody's been paying attention to you.
Yeah. Well, this is human nature again. In 2010, when there's lots of stuff for sale, you know, you're shopping, you go, okay, well, I'm not going to buy anything that's not perfectly fixed. It's going to be a single story. It's going to be 2,500 square feet. It's going to be this and that. And then last week, I sell a house that's got a termite report that looks like if they quit holding hand, it'll fall to the ground because the mentality has changed. That's what happened to condos. Do you want a single family? Yes. When you stop affording that, what happens is you rationalize, well, a condo is just as good. A mobile home is just as good on fee simple land. A mobile home in a park is just as good. On a dirt road is just as good. You go through this product shift where this is okay and you rationalize. Now that ends very quickly with condos. It has a life at the end and it's very strong, and then it dies really fast. So that is, yes, you get velocity out of condo prices, but you also have that die very fast. You get stuck with a condo, you may own it till the next price run, okay? But yeah, it's a valid product type that was completely on sale. I mean, we bought a condo, I'm going to say a year ago in Corona for 62 grand in a public auction that went for 300. We bought for 20% of value of the loan value in Corona. And it was a public auction. Okay. I mean, I was sort of scratching my head. I mean, rented for $1,100. So whatever the return on investment there, that seemed to work.
That was pretty good.
You know, but okay, what are you going to do? So yes, condos get damaged because people would rather buy other things. And at the end, when they rationalize, the price takes off would be that's what those charts tell me.
Last month, there was a large subdivision run by the Irvine Company whose phase releases were selling out each time they were released with a waiting list. That did not happen for the first time in a year just this past month. What does that mean?
Oh. I wouldn't draw any long-term conclusions on one release not selling out. Maybe they went up so much in price, there's going to be a pause. I don't know. Do I think that Irvine's over and you should get out of everything you own in Irvine? I mean, that's kind of what the question's like. I doubt it. I just don't. I look at the long-term trends. That's why it's actually a lot easier to make long-term trends than tell you what's going to happen in 60 days.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue. But charts long-term, I have a much better idea of saying, if I looked at that and said, are we done in Orange County? It doesn't look like it to me.
I mean, there's a bunch of, there's a,
Welcome to Irvine.
yeah, no kidding. You know,
What were they? What were they a year ago? Do you remember that?
they didn't have it. This is the first time we built Irvine for quite a while.
Okay.
This is on the,
Call John Burns.
Okay.
you know, the one thing about one of the things we've been doing a monthly, foreclosure report, now monthly property report, and, every month there's usually somewhere in the statistics some little anomaly that you go, uh-oh, what's that about, right? And this can be one of those things.
Yeah.
And, there can be a lot of, different reasons, that you get something like that happening. It could be because of some of the government shutdown worries, just had people want to take a pause and see how that's all going to work out. There's a lot of different things. I mean, those are probably in contract before that. But, there's a lot of different things that can happen, especially in a small, you said there was 7 homes?
Well, no, there was about 7 builders. There were 7 builders. There were 10 models.
Oh, 7 builders, 10 models. Got it. So anyways, be careful jumping to conclusion from 1 month, 1 data point.
I think this goes to your statement, Sean, if I'm reading this right. Why would less financing or higher percentage down payment, this is going to what you said, let's have some people bring more buyers to home ownership. That does not seem logical. Where is the historical data to support that theory?
Yeah.
Well, so again, at the end of the day, right, if, and this is, it's probably a theory that's not, it's mine, and I don't think it's, I think a lot of people would disagree with it. I think fundamentally, if you have a stable housing market, right, that is still a good hedge to inflation, but doesn't have these cycles, right, that, frankly leave a lot of devastation, right? And for some of those folks, there's memories of that devastation, right? It becomes easier to home ownership, right? If we get fairly stable prices and stuff, do I really care if I rent the property? Or, you know what, maybe as an investor, I sell the person the property, let them deal with the property taxes and all of that, so long as I can take the property back easily, right? Mm-hmm. I just think, ultimately in a more stable, foreseeable, where it's tied to fundamentals of the economy, income, things along those lines, rather than speculation. I mean, a lot of talk right now about Prop 13. I'm going to just segue just a little bit here. But, Prop 13 came about because here in California, we've got a long history of wild speculation, bubbles up and down. And especially, I mean, think about 2000, right? You own a house in 2000 and you go through 2007 and your property doubles in value. And each year, your property tax bill is going up, 20%, right? If we had had that bubble without Prop 13, there would have been political blood in the streets. And I think everybody right now, with prices coming down the other way, is like, oh, we got to get rid of Prop 13, the schools and the children, oh my. But Prop 13, I think, made a lot of sense in that it stabilized ownership and protect the ownership from these bubbles where people might otherwise get priced out of their own home. Now, I think we made a mistake with Prop 13 by limiting the increase each year at 2% because we have more inflation than 2%, and that can't keep up with the costs of schools and fire departments and all those things. So we have set ourselves up for this problem where we don't have sufficient income from real estate to fund these things, and it probably take Prop 13 and tie it to CPI, and I think it makes sense, right? Shouldn't government live within, inflation? So if expenses went up 2%, shouldn't they be limited to keeping their expenses at an increasing at 2% rather than taking a bigger piece of the pie?
This question kind of dovetails on that. It says, please talk about Generation Y. I read that they may swing away from the American dream of home ownership.
Well, I think they just want to stay in the bedroom of their parents as long as they can. They do have more college debt, but my son Aaron has been an interesting test case for that generation because all of his friends were of that ilk until 2 years ago when all of a sudden everybody got married. And then they own a home, a single family home with a yard, and that's exactly what they decided they wanted after telling them they wouldn't have it. So I'm just not buying it. Not everybody's going to live in a high rise, and I just don't think so.
I heard that 2 million military veterans will be coming into the California market in the next 2 years. What kind of effect do you foresee this having on real estate?
I don't know where you got the number. That would surprise me, to be honest with you. Why is that? Are they closing?
It didn't say. It just said I heard that 2 million military veterans will be coming into the California market in the next 2 years.
That'd be good to know.
That would be really good to know. That would be a
positive,
very good migration number.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a big number. I wouldn't even know how to, and I don't know why it wouldn't have been stated by somebody on the panel that's all over California.
Wouldn't their families already be here potentially? I mean, are they,
Unless they're closing other bases, but again, that panel, surely somebody on that panel would go, well, wait till you see this,
Yeah, no, it'd be,
we all don't know.
So whoever has that information, it's insider information.
Yeah,
act on it.
Email Bruce. He wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
How much effect on house price does consumer confidence have?
I know it doesn't. You can have consumer prices or consumer mood go down, and you can have prices accelerate. So, 2009-11 was 2002. I'm sorry. What year was? 2001. You look at the consumer chart. It went down a lot, and California real estate prices did not go down. So they can head in different directions. So,
but let's be clear about what happened in 2001 to 2006, right? This wasn't consumers or folks saying, hey, let's charge this market forward. I mean, there was a concerted effort to blow a bubble in housing to rescue us from the tech bubble, right? So, I mean, the federal government, the Federal Reserve in particular, created a bubble in housing to rescue us from the tech bubble and get the economy going again. Because again, we don't have a productive economy anymore, right? We have a finance, insurance, and real estate economy that is driven by bubbles, and and that's what we're doing again right now, right? That with the stock market and the rest. If that stat's right, 80% of earnings growth in companies is due to cheaper financing, right? And cheaper financing is what? Because of Fed policy. It's a command and control economy that is blowing bubbles. So don't think that that's some sort of normal real estate cycle. I mean, that's I think where I fundamentally disagree with this whole idea that it's normal for it to go to 20%. I mean, look at the previous bubbles and then look at this last one on a chart. They look a little different.
Right, but it didn't go just to 17%. It went to 11, and so that was the last 2 years of nonsense. So that's why, so that was excessive, and it was all based on financing. So it'll be interesting to see, where we end up. If our bull run ends at 36%, it'll be the first. And that's when you're in the projection business, that's the thing. You kind of go, okay, if I've looked at the right categories, and it's not just a one standalone category. That's the thing about affordability. So you don't just look at that. It's in unison of other things. I guess I land on the space that we still have room to grow in price and absorb an interest rate hike. So do I expect that we'll be higher after 2014 is over? I do. I don't know how you avoid it, especially since the human participates, Do
you think Fannie and Freddie will be eliminated?
I don't think it's possible. Not right now. I don't know how you get from here to there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, I know it's incrementally being attempted to happen at 5% a year. When you and I spoke in front of Fannie Mae, I got the sense that they thought they wouldn't be there.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, like everybody in the room seemed like they were looking for jobs.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to go sell big piles of REOs to hedge funds so the hedge funds would hire them.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the goal of everybody, well, not everybody in the room, but a lot of the folks in the room.
What year was that? 2012 or 11 or before that? 2010. So you know, I left there going, okay, well, these guys are really going to shut down in 10 years. That was their feeling.
They want to get out this year before it gets worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when you look at the percentages, FHA is actually declining in percentage. So Fannie and Freddie are just a huge percentage.
Do you see interest rates going to 6% next year? And if not, then when?
Oh. Yeah, I don't know how to predict that. I don't see an economy that lets it go to 6%, but could you see 10% again someday? Yeah. You just don't want to get in the way of it.
But I think this is the trap, right? With the debt that we've created, the output gap of not growing the economy fast enough to pay the debt, right? We can't have higher interest rates. There was somebody on your panel, I think they said if interest rates double, was this on your panel just recently? And so again, I haven't verified this number. It could be completely wrong, but it was like if interest rates on treasuries were to double, right, the increase in interest payments per year are greater than the entire military budget for the United States. Right? So can that happen? No, can't happen. Right? We can't really have higher interest rates. We put ourselves, the Fed has put us in a corner.
Right.
And there's two ways out. We have to grow our way out, which we're not doing, right? Or we have to inflate our way out. There was just a headline in New York Times last week that was talking about how the Fed is saying that inflation may be too low and that we're put ourselves in a situation like Japan, and maybe the right answer is higher inflation. And I just say be careful what you wish for.
Mm. But if you had higher inflation, you'd have higher interest rates at some point.
Yeah, but the problem is that you can't have that without some really major disconnect, right? Because if we have higher interest rates and they demand higher interest rates on treasuries, and a lot of our treasuries are short term, boy, we got a really big problem. And I think that's the quandary that the Fed is in, and we're putting an academic in to run the Fed next year. That's my, what's my biggest concern? I don't know that it's next year, but over the next 5 years, is how we solve that puzzle. Because I'm not hearing anybody with any great ideas.
No, he might think, I think you think it's going to come to a head.
I'm just saying that I think that that's our biggest risk, right? The Federal Reserve is doing an amazing job right now, right, of juggling and keeping what is, by all appearances, a pretty healthy economy, right? Considering the position we put ourselves in, but it's a juggle because you have to continue to borrow money at this incredibly low rate and change out our short-term debt while we continue to borrow more money. Look, Congress and the executive branch aren't doing their part in terms of controlling spending, and they really can't, because if we pull back spending right now, it makes the output gap worse, and it makes the problem worse, so we can even less afford the debt that we're in. So that's the fundamental problem we have. We've grown our economy for 30 years with cheaper interest rates. We've hit the zero bounds. We have to grow it some other way. I think it's possible with leadership we could grow it through actual increases in productivity.
You mean make stuff?
Make stuff. Do things that actually add value to the economy. I mean, no offense, we're all in real estate, but finance, insurance, and real estate don't add any value to the economy other than building. The building portion does, but the rest, we're just traders.
Arbitrage.
Arbitrage. I mean, we're not adding any fundamental value. We're not building things.
Last question, gentlemen.
Okay.
I know you're excited. will areas like the Inland Empire, in your opinion, outperform the coastal areas for 2014?
It's too short a time frame. Is there more upside in San Bernardino, Riverside County from its former peak? Yes. Did Orange County use up more of its? Yes, already. But that's normal. It goes from the coast inland. So I don't see that as being unusual. I really just don't. But I don't want to predict 1 year. But I think in general, Riverside, San Bernardino, the one thing lagging there is employment improvement. You need construction. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to construction because they're not creating building lots. So they're going to build on existing lots, and then there's going to be a hole. And right now, we have about 1% of the inventory is unsold new construction, which is literally 1/4 of a normal amount. So there's nothing that's unsold.
We did have something really unusual happen this cycle, right? So the way the cycles normally work, right, is you get strong economic activity in your economic centers, right? And as that strong economic activity happens, it spreads outward, right? And then as things get bad, they get bad outward and come inward. And that's happened in the past, right? We had foreclosures in Stockton and in Riverside before we did, on the coast. And so that's kind of the normal thing. What's really curious though is this time we didn't have this economic improvement and this improvement in housing start in the centers and move out. It started on the outskirts and moved in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And and this was really a very different thing. It wasn't driven by growth in employment and economic strength and all the rest. It was driven by a realization by folks with money that, wow, in this really low interest environment, the 7-10% returns in Riverside look really good. And so this cycle in terms of price increases was not driven by economic strength coming from your urban centers moving outward. It came from financial arbitrage, and it's a fundamentally different thing. I'm not sure that it means anything, but it's a very different thing than all of our past cycles.
To me, it's like when you have an IPO and only the insiders get to buy it for $1. That's kind of what happened to California real estate. It went from below replacement cost to maybe at replacement cost, and the participant that's going to get an FHA loan is going to get it this level instead of 40% off this level. That's basically what happened. They couldn't compete with, the proof of funds is $80 million and we're buying this for 80 grand. That's a little hard to get your FHA loan offer accepted. That's going to probably start being more common. You'll have that person have a chance as inventory becomes, lasts a little longer. That's actually a healthier market to have the occupant buyer,
So I think that was a big part of 2013. 2012 in my mind was kind of the year of the short sale. 2013, I think, really was the return of, occupant buyers finally getting a chance as investors were starting to pull back because of prices. And also with the return of some equity sellers, coming back into the market. So you definitely had both those players finally able to play again after being sidelined for a year. And so is that what drives next year? If not, what does drive next year?
So I'll ask the last question, Bruce. 2014, is it going to be better? Is it going to be the same? Or is it going to be worse than what we are going through in 2013?
Well, what did we go through in 2013?
Where are we?
It was nice.
Yeah.
Like if you look over from January to December 31st, which we're not there yet, you'd be happy you participated. I have the same feeling for 2014, that we'll be happy we participated. To what extent, I'm not going to say on a year basis, because again, there's just a lot of unknowns. I think California real estate has to go up because there's more demand than supply. I don't know how that inverts, and we'll just see. You'd have to have government policies really say, you know what, we're going to stall home ownership intentionally by all this stuff, and I think the economy would react pretty quickly, and then they go, oh my goodness, that's politically very and very unsettling.
Not fun
so,
for you as a politician if you're responsible for that.
Yeah, so I don't know. And I think it's probably very safe to do those loans too. I mean, I don't think they're going to cause losses. They're going to look at the last couple of years and go, wow, safest pile of loans ever.
Same question.
I think like last year and the year before, if you thrive on change, you're going to like the year. And if you have a hard time with change, I think we'll just continue to see shifts and changes in the market. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. I think we're still at a point right now where I don't see huge risk in the market, and I see lots of opportunity. Where that opportunity is, I think will continue to shift, and what's easy or hard to do will continue to shift. And so, keep an open mind, pay attention to what's going on, look for where people are making money, and don't count on what you did yesterday working.
Let me ask a quick question. In where areas where prices have already accelerated past the peak before, was there?
San Jose.
Yeah. Okay. So when you were at 2006, and let's say you got in 2010, when they were looking back, were they saying, well, of course that was an unreasonable number, and now that they're past that, has it become a reasonable number? Mentally, have we shifted back to where, oh yeah, this is perfectly okay?
I think, so I'm going to make this, very specific to a couple of friends, who are well paid in the Silicon Valley. One is choosing to rent because they got, hurt last time.
Okay.
They went a little bit more to the outskirts and built got a really big house a little too far out, and the other one stayed in closer, and, they saw their value decrease a little, but now it's up higher than it was. It's actually higher than it was at the peak. And so they have a little bit different perspective. But overall, I think, in Silicon Valley, the feeling is still so strong on the tech industry that I don't think they feel like home prices are sustainable, but they want to be an owner, and they don't see a choice. And they don't see, with all the competition, they don't see, they don't see huge losses, but they kind of mentally realize that it doesn't make a lot of sense.
They're buying it for occupancy rights as opposed to profit potential.
Yeah, I think there's a big part of it. I built a house this year. Makes worst financial decision I've ever made in my life. But it's ridiculous right now. California has basically made building a home illegal, and it just, I can't rationalize the purchase in any way, shape, or form. But I want it, and I can afford it, and who gives a shit?
Right.
And I think that's what's happening in Silicon Valley right now. But there's ramifications to that, right? The median income household in San Jose cannot afford to live in San Jose, cannot afford to buy. Their kids aren't going to, graduate college and get a job and be able to afford to buy there. So, we've got a major kind of displacement, et cetera, going on, and it's more of this, divergence or elimination of the middle class. And you see that in that area, I think, more strongly than most.
Do you think I'm just curious about immigration. Do you think immigration changes will take place in the next 12 months, and that'll be a negative or a positive for California real estate?
There's a good question.
That's a special report I'm working on, by the way.
Yeah. And I think that's an important one, because if they do make progress on immigration reform and the rest, and let's make no mistake, if you're in Silicon Valley, and I'm sorry I don't know Orange County as well, but if you're in Silicon Valley, you realize that even the immigration laws we have now are having some impact there. nobody that's lived in Silicon Valley for the last 20 years hasn't realized that there's a change in profile in the area, and you can immigrate into the U.S. right now if you bring some cash.
Yes.
And Silicon Valley is a pretty great place to show up with cash from other countries. So, yeah.
What he's saying is the rules are different if you have money. It is true.
When did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, let's give them a big hand for sharing their time with us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Bruce Norris, thenorrisgroup.com is your website. And obviously, Bruce is a hard money lender and an educator. And Sean O'Toole with PropertyRadar.com. If you haven't checked out his product, I use it. I pay for it. And he doesn't pay me to say that. It's a good product. So are you guys going to maybe hang out for a little bit? I know there's a lot of questions that people want to ask that we didn't get to. So you may get a few more questions. So great. They're going to hang out for a little bit. Let's head out to the lounge and finish up our evening.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did Boston win the World Series?
Wow.